With the euro, it's been a live question ever since the European debt crisis struck Ireland, Portugal, Spain and especially Greece. Now, ahead of crucial meetings with the leaders of Germany and France, Athens is pleading for easier terms for its bailout. With the countries of southern Europe suffering austerity fatigue, as the Economist magazine puts it, and rescue fatigue in the north, monetary union is in real trouble. James Shugg is Westpac's senior economist in London. James Shugg, welcome to the program.
Jim, thanks for having me.
Your bank, spent a bit of the European summer visiting some of the key countries on the continent, notably Germany and France. I get the distinct impression that the discussions there left Westpac with the view that an end to the euro does remain a distinct possibility. Is that right?
I think that is a fair assessment. Certainly there is and has been growing concern on the continent that the flaws that were built into the euro right from the start might prove to be insurmountable in terms of putting a fix in place that means that the euro can survive in its current form indefinitely. The flaws are related to the lack of fiscal union, the lack of overall political supervision that has allowed countries to go their own way in terms of economic competitiveness, in terms of their fiscal positions, at the same time as they've given up independence in terms of monetary policy and they haven't got a flexible exchange rate anymore. So economies have become much more rigid in terms of what they can do, but they haven't got the ability now to put in place the sorts of policies that would allow them time to make reforms that will be necessary over the longer term. And the politics involved in all this is just so hugely difficult that there really is some scepticism out there that this thing can last.
The key country, of course, is Germany. The cost to Germany, one way or the other, of a collapse of the euro would be massive. I've seen a figure of around $150 billion lost one way or the other if just Greece returned to the drachma, 4% of Germany's GDP. Surely Germans don't want the consequences of dealing with that, let alone a collapse of the entire euro system.
But it's going to cost Germany hugely whatever happens, because if the euro is to be held together, Germany is going to have to lessen its insistence on austerity in Greece, in Spain and other parts of Europe, in exchange for providing support for the governments in those countries. Now, right at the moment, there's negotiations going on to see if Greece can get an extra 2 years to meet its budget deficit reduction commitments. That's going to require, therefore, more funding for Greece from the other parts of Europe, led by Germany, if they're to meet those new targets. Now, in other words, for Germany to contribute to holding the euro together, they're going to have to be put in place fiscal transfers from Germany and the wealthier northern states to the peripheral countries that have got the real problems, not just this year, but for many years to come, until those economies can put in place the economic and structural reforms that they need to, so that they can actually survive and operate within the strictures of a single currency environment.
How do you read the situation going into these critical meetings? Greece's Prime Minister Antonis Samaras says Greece simply wants a bit more breathing space. Germany's finally saying there might be some room to move on the terms of the loans and also lower interest rates. Do you think that is what will finally emerge?
I think that's hugely important, Jim. I think that's the litmus test has been passed now. They're going to soften the insistence there. And I think that also means that if Spain were to ask for a sovereign bailout, not just for the banks, but for the Spanish government itself, there may not be that much more additional austerity imposed upon Spain in return for that bailout. And that would also mean that the European Central Bank could put in place its bond purchase plan, about which we don't yet have any detail, but that's certainly something that is going to be a critical event to watch for September 6, when we think the ECB President will give some more detail on just exactly what form that bond purchase program will take.
Doesn't it all point to this then? The prolonged crisis suggests that Europe desperately needs to turn the euro into a well-rounded currency rather than the one-legged variety it currently is. But your bank thinks that would require full fiscal, or rather, that would require full fiscal and political union. And your bank seems to think it would take a debt crisis in France to produce such a result. That'd be real shock therapy, wouldn't it?
Well, but look at the French numbers. I mean, the stock of French debt is higher than that of Spain as a percent of GDP. It's 90-something% compared to Spain on 80. Not as high as Italy, though, where it's 120%. The French budget deficit, the structural deficit is something like 3.5% of GDP, which is only a percentage point or so lower than that in Spain. The reason markets are currently forgiving France this is that there's a real culture of nationalism in France. You pay your tax. It's seen as something you do. You know, Greeks don't see it that way. The Spanish haven't been, quite as, willing to pay taxes either. But the French, you can tax the French to the hilt and they'll pay. Now, but the problem is the French economy is very uncompetitive. 35-hour week, other issues related to regulation and so on. They would all have to go if France were to survive in the single currency in the longer term, if markets decided that the French budget position and debt position was no longer sustainable. But the problem is the French don't want to give up autonomy. They're French, they don't want to give up autonomy to some overarching European president or parliament that may not be French. So it might require the markets to really attack France, questioning the budget numbers there, for France to give in on that point of sort of political union, and then we could see perhaps a longer term solution come through.
James Shugg, we better leave it there. Thanks very much once again.
Jim, good to talk to you.